Trade Minister Don Farrell says China is set to drop the ban on Aussie wine as relations normalise. Bain Capital, the owner of Virgin Australia, buys one of the country's biggest aged care operators. And by his own standards, Donald Trump's latest outburst over the Women's World Cup is simply extraordinary. Welcome to Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. It is Tuesday, the 8th of August, 2023. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Great stories coming up today, Sean. And later, after the show, you have an interview with Melanie Cochrane, the Australia-New Zealand CEO and Group Managing Director of Equifax.
Yeah, so what's really interesting about Equifax is they get so much data on what's happening in the world of lending before anyone else does. So we have a look at what's happening in the unsecured credit world, buy now, pay later, for example, and then in the secured credit world, mostly that's mortgages and car loans, and there is plenty happening. This is a great leading indicator about what's going on in the economy. So if you're interested in the economy or interested in lending, it's definitely worth listening to my chat with Melanie.
Yeah, it's coming up a little bit later on, and I agree. It is a must listen. The main story, though, this morning, Sean, is a very interesting one. Trade Minister Don Farrell says he is, quote, extremely confident that China's tariffs of 220% on Australian wine will be scrapped following Beijing's decision to remove tariffs on barley. And he believes the decision is actually not very far away.
He's so confident that you can't believe that it's not going to happen really in the next week or two. Farrell believes Canberra and Beijing can completely stabilise their relationship and repair the damage caused by the ongoing trade tension. He said the government's efforts over the past 15 months, including participating in separate meetings between himself, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Foreign Minister Penny Wong with their Chinese counterparts, had proved successful. With goodwill on both sides, Farrell says the relationship can completely stabilise. He added that the Prime Minister would accept an invitation from the Chinese government to visit Beijing this year. That's assuming he gets one, I suppose. The outstanding $2 billion worth of Chinese trade sanctions at the moment include tariffs on wine and de facto bans on lobster and red meat from some abattoirs. But clearly relations between the two countries are a long way in front of where they were in May last year when the election was held.
Yeah, and I think you might be right there, Sean. It does sound like he knows something is on its way. You would not go that hard on this without maybe an inkling that an announcement was imminent.
Exactly.
Big news then. Big news on the trade front. What else was going on in Canberra yesterday with both houses sitting?
Well, the voice referendum debate is heating up. I suppose it's already pretty hot, so it's getting even hotter. Labor is claiming the opposition parties are running a scare campaign over the referendum, while the Liberals keep asking the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, whether or not he supports a treaty at a national level. The latest news poll in The Australian shows that support for a constitutionally enshrined Indigenous voice has fallen below 50% in every state. It is only ahead of the no vote in two of them. It was also interesting yesterday that opposition leader Peter Dutton used his first question in question time to ask about the cost of living, saying the government hasn't done enough to tackle the crisis. Maybe that's the line of attack the opposition thinks will get a fair bit of cut through. Also, there was fallout from the ABC Four Corners report that alleged KPMG sought to overcharge Defence by $1 million on a single proposal, charged for work never completed, and once billed for a consultant who wasn't on the project. It came after the government flagged reforms for all consulting firms dealing with the federal government, of course. I'm sure we'll hear more about that one.
Yeah, there is plenty happening in Canberra at the moment. What about local markets yesterday? What happened?
Well, the S&P ASX 200 closed down 0.2% to 7,309 points. Bit of a mixed bag, really. Suncorp was the worst of the large caps. It dropped 2.4%, while CSL, Fortescue Metals, Rio Tinto, QBE, Xero, South 32 were all off more than 1%. That group is very eclectic from a right across the economy. Goodman Group, the industrial property outfit, was the best of the large caps, rising 1.2%, while WiseTech Global, Woodside and Wesfarmers all outperformed as well. Block tumbled 10% and ResMed dropped 4% after both reported their results in the US on Friday night local time. Profit reporting season, Michael, of course, kicks off today. James Hardie comes out. Then, of course, the big one tomorrow is Commonwealth Bank. Plenty to look forward to.
All right, and what else is happening in international markets?
Well, the wheat market's pretty interesting at the moment because the commodity is becoming a weapon of war. Mid last month, Russian President Vladimir Putin withdrew from a United Nations brokered deal to allow Ukraine to export grains. Russia then attacked Ukrainian ports, which further hurt Ukrainian exports. Now, Ukraine has used sea drones to cripple a Russian oil tanker, showing it too can effectively block shipping lanes in the Black Sea. That's where Russia, which is the world's largest grain exporter, moves most of its product. The upshot, of course, is that wheat prices are rising. That Ukraine attack on the Russian vessel also ensured that oil prices remain elevated. Oil prices, in fact, have risen in each of the past 6 weeks. That's the longest run since June 2022. The Aussie dollar is trading at 65.7 US cents, Michael. And worth a mention, Apple's disappointing June quarter earnings result, which we mentioned yesterday, it led to a 5% fall in its share price. It means the world's biggest company is now back under the $3 trillion US dollar mark.
Oh, it was nice while it lasted, wasn't it?
Yeah, it'll get there again, I'm confident.
Oh, I'm sure it will. Okay, we'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, private equity group Bain Capital already owns Virgin Australia, and now it's added aged care operator Estia Health after its $838 million offer was endorsed by the group's board.
Estia operates 73 homes across Victoria, South Australia, New South Wales and Queensland, and its chief executive, Sean Bilton, said the industry is ripe for more deals. The Bain bid at $3.20 a share was the second price offered after the initial $3 a share bid was knocked back. The board has unanimously recommended the bid. Between 60 and 70% of aged care providers operate either one or two homes, so there's no doubt there is scope for consolidation out there. Also, government regulations are likely to make things much more onerous for small players. So I dare say this Estia deal will be the first of quite a few over the next few years.
Sean, funeral director business InvoCare went into a trading halt yesterday with reports that private equity firm TPG Capital told the board over the weekend that it's ready to walk away unless the two sides can agree to a lower price than the $13 a share original bid.
Yeah, so Bloomberg's reporting that the new offer is around $12.70 a share. Apparently, that change follows due diligence. The inconvenient fact that death rates are slowing, inconvenient only if you're InvoCare, and a weaker performance from InvoCare's competitors. TPG's accrued nearly 20% of the company. The InvoCare board has already indicated that at $13 a share, they're definitely very, very interested. But now, obviously, TPG Capital want to pay a little less.
The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. Sean, did you notice how quick that story was absolutely ripe for puns about deals being dead in the water, all that kind of thing. And you know what I thought? No, today I'm going to be mature, and I just let it go.
Then you couldn't help yourself. You were so proud of yourself. Yeah. And so you started on the next story, then you had to stop and say the deal's dead in the water. You just had to.
I'm sorry. I just can't resist. Now, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, as I mentioned, has been pretty busy because last week the competition watchdog blocked ANZ's bid for Suncorp Bank, and yesterday it said it would extend its examination of the proposed $18.7 billion takeover of Origin Energy by almost 4 weeks.
The lengthening of the review to September 28 comes after the ACCC wrote to Origin's suitors, Brookfield and EIG partners, saying it needed more time to complete its work. Now, the watchdog is unsure if the merger is allowable under Section 90 of the Competition and Consumer Act. That part of the legislation requires the ACCC to be satisfied that a deal won't substantially lessen competition and that it's likely to have a net benefit for the public. Several of Origin's rivals have made submissions to the ACCC. No surprise there. But what they're really pushing is the importance of Brookfield's undertaking to ring-fence information and decision-making around Origin and around another of Brookfield's business, AusNet Transmission and Distribution business. It doesn't want to cross over there, so I'm sure the ACCC is looking very closely at that one.
Now, this is an interesting one, Sean. If you have an iiNet or a tpg.com.au email account, you might be about to lose it, with TPG Telecom selling off accounts linked to internet brands like iiNet.
The telco is trying to simplify its business and cut costs, basically. So it's going to force users to switch to a new company if they want to keep their email addresses. Users of email addresses managed by TPG, including tpg.com.au, iinet.net.au, as well as internode.on.net and westnet.com.au, I don't even know there was a .on.
Yeah, it's not the catchiest email address, is it?
Internode.on.net.
No.
Anyway, and westnet.com.au, they've been given 6 weeks to opt in to a new email provider. In emails from IINet seen by the Financial Review, users have been told their accounts will be suspended by mid-September unless they accept being transferred to the messaging company. That's what it's called, the messaging company. If users don't accept the transfer, their email addresses will be deleted at the end of November. They'll no longer be able to access existing emails, according to IINet.
All right, and one last one, Sean, before we move to international news. The ACT government has agreed to all 10 recommendations of the inquiry into the rape trial of former Liberal staffer Bruce Lerman, led by former Supreme Court Justice Walter Sofronoff, KC.
The final report was released by Chief Minister Andrew Barr yesterday after it was leaked to the media last week and following the resignation on Friday of ACT Director of Public Prosecutions Shane Drumgold. Barr said the recommendations offered a pathway forward for the ACT criminal justice system and would strengthen community confidence in the institutions that support a fair and just system. If you read the report, I haven't read it, but I have scanned it. Wow, you need something to boost the community confidence in the institutions that support a fair and just system, because it doesn't look good. The recommendations make it very clear that better processes and training are needed.
Okay, looking overseas now, Sean, China has released a new documentary about the army's preparation to attack Taiwan and showcasing soldiers pledging to give up their lives if needed. That sounds like quite the documentary.
Indeed, it's part of Beijing's ramping up of its rhetoric against the self-ruled island. Chasing Dreams is an 8-part docu-series aired by state broadcaster CCTV to mark the People's Liberation Army's 96th anniversary. It features military drills and testimonials by dozens of soldiers, of which several express their willingness to die in a potential attack against Taiwan. The materials fan rising nationalism and display military confidence against Taiwan and implicitly its ties with the United States, according to Associated Press.
Goodness me, Chasing Dreams.
I know.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yes, yeah, perhaps very one-sided, I suspect, that title might be. Sean, US government scientists have achieved net energy gain in a fusion reaction for the second time. This is a result that's set to fuel optimism that progress is being made towards the dream of limitless zero-carbon power. That's pretty cool.
Yes, I remember last year we talked about the first time they'd done it, and it was such a massive breakthrough in science.
I remember you explaining it in detail because you get very excited about these scientific stories.
Oh, totally. Well, basically, physicists have since the 1950s wanted to harness the fusion reaction that powers the sun. But until late last year, it was December, I think no group had been able to produce more energy from the reaction than it consumes. So the output was always less than the input. Now, if you can do that, it's a condition known as ignition, if the output can be greater than the input. According to the Financial Times, researchers in California who achieved ignition for the first time late last year repeated the breakthrough in an experiment on July 30. And that experiment produced a higher energy output than the last one in December. Fusion is achieved by heating two hydrogen isotopes to such extreme temperatures that the atomic nuclei fuse, releasing helium and vast amount of energy in the form of neutrons. Fusion reactions emit no carbon. They produce no long-lived radioactive waste. And basically, they say a small cup of hydrogen fuel could theoretically power a house for hundreds of years. We are many, many years off making something commercial from this, but it's very, very exciting.
It feels like significant progress.
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that they've been able to repeat it, that's really significant.
Yeah, it means the first time wasn't a fluke.
Basically.
Sean, one last one. I mentioned this at the top of the show. Not even the Women's World Cup can escape from Donald Trump. It was a great game last night between the Matildas and the Danes, and I wish we were able to talk more about that, but former President Donald Trump he manages to just steal the headlines everywhere he goes. He went to town on the US team, the defending champions, who lost on Sunday night to Sweden and have been eliminated from the competition.
Yeah, so a little background. The USA team lost on a penalty shootout, and one of the 3 players to miss a spot kick was Megan Rapinoe, who has long been at war, or at least in a feud, with Trump. So the former president on Truth Social, his own social media site, said that the USA's surprise elimination from the Women's World Cup shows that the entire country is going to hell. And I quote, "The shocking and totally unexpected loss by the US women's soccer team to Sweden is fully emblematic of what is happening to our once great nation under crooked Joe Biden. Many of our players were openly hostile to America. No other country behaved in such a manner or even close. Then in all caps, woke equals failure. Then nice shot, Megan. The USA is going to hell." Then quotes again, MAGA, make America great again. Oh, wow.
I honestly don't know what to say about that. Like this is something that we should just be talking about how extraordinary the displays have been. I mean, the sportsmanship on display has been quite remarkable, and then you get this, and you're just like, okay, all right, I don't know what to do.
No.
Certainly good drama, Sean. Certainly good theatre. Now, up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview. You're speaking today to Melanie Cochrane from Equifax.
Yep, all about secured credit, unsecured credit, what's happening in those markets, and what that suggests is going on in the economy.
Yeah, it's up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Tuesday, the 8th of August, 2023. Make sure you're following the podcast and join us online as well on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fear and Greed Business News. Have a great day.